Welcome to the top bulletin in town, NTV Weekend Edition. It's the first day of September, and these are top stories today. Tonight, it's official. You will pay 128 shillings for a litre of petrol.
Kwa nini wanasiasa wetu wamesahau wakati tuliwachagua? Sasa wanatuona kama takataka.
And as reality dawns, Kenyans await salvation from President Uhuru Kenyatta. Also tonight, Kenya's appetite for borrowing threatens long-time pain.
We also accepted too many things, trying to build stadiums, all manner of things, the standard gauge railway and all these goodies, shiny things that have not generated any growth.
President Kenyatta lands in China with another loan most likely on the plate.
Hii mambo ya kwenda kuras watu saa 10 ya usiku, ikiwa mtu ako na watoto wake ndani ya nyumba, makama rais.
Politicians rally behind corruption suspects, but the deputy president says no.
It is not targeted at anybody or any community or any political party.
And in our special, Rose Wangoi has an inspiring piece on a car wash that employs people living with autism.
NTV Weekend Edition with Mark Masai.
Good evening. Gladys Gashanja is away sitting in for her tonight. And David Agondoa and I are glad that you've chosen us to bring you the top stories of this first day of September. It is official. You will pay more fuel, transport and basic goods as the Kenya Revenue Authority announced the implementation of new taxes on petroleum products. And almost right on cue, the Energy Regulatory Commission announced it had revised upwards the retail prices of petrol, diesel and kerosene. NTV's Sharon Baranga reports on the pain of the new fuel prices and the nightmare that awaits Kenyans.
Kenyans are concerned that if the proposed increase in fuel price takes effect, then the cost of living will go up, which will cause untold suffering to a majority who are already struggling.
It was billed as the crack of doom, but reality finally dawns as the Energy Regulatory Commission announced the adjusted prices of petrol, diesel and kerosene starting today. It spells more pain. In Nairobi, petrol will go for 127.80 shillings per litre, up from 113.70. Diesel will go up to 115.08 shillings, up from 102.70 shillings, and kerosene now costs 97.41 shillings. In Mombasa, the price of petrol is now 124.49 shillings, diesel is 111.78 shillings, and kerosene will retail at 94.61 shillings. In Eldoret, petrol retails at 129.64 shillings, diesel is at 117.15 shillings, and kerosene goes for 99.29 shillings. These changes have elicited sharp reactions.
Tukiangalia tu inatumika na yule mtu wako na pesa mingi peke yake, tutakuwa tunavinyiria mwenye anapata mapato kidogo.
Kama unapepa mtu anafaa kulipe 50, ukimuongezea umwambie atalipa 100, itakuwa ngumu kwake kuongeza 100 na amezoea 50.
Na kitu moja inanishangaza ni kwa nini wanasiasa wetu wamesahau wakati tuliwachagua. Sasa wanatuona kama takataka tufai.
Kila kitu napika kwangu natumia mafuta ya taa. Na hii pikipiki yangu kwa siku inaniletea shilingi 200. Hii shilingi 200 nikianza kugawa napata hata mafuta nanunua ya mbao.
And those operating public service vehicles also held similar sentiments.
Kazi ni ngumu kabisa yani. Yaani mkipandisha mafuta mambo itakuwa mmetumaliza kwa njia ya sekta ya matatu.
Imekuwa ni balaa, maana sasa unaona wameongeza mafuta, mshahara ni pale pale. Sasa unapata ukiongeza hiyo mafuta na sisi pia itabidi tuongeze tuhai kile fare.
The Inter-County Youth Consultative Forum and the Secretary General of Central Organization of Trade Unions, Francis Atwoli, want the changes in fuel prices reversed.
We behoove the government to be kind enough, to be considerate to this VAT Act, because it is going to cause immense suffering to Kenyans.
Bwana Rotich ni lazima aheshimu bunge, aheshimu mahakama na aheshimu executive. Na hawezi kusema yeye ataongeza kuweje liwalo na liwalo. Yeye ni nani? Akiendelea hivyo sisi tutaungana na Wakenya wengine wa kawaida, wale ambao watakaokuwa wamefinywa kuhakikisha ya kwamba sio waziri tena.
Though ERC says that changes in fuel prices will be effective from 1st September to 14th September, members of parliament voted to delay the implementation of the new levies by another 2 years. But President Uhuru is yet to assent to the amended Finance Bill 2018. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Pressure at the pump is not everything that you are going or need to be worried about in the next few weeks and months. Aside from the new fuel levies, here are some of the other ways the government is planning on squeezing you for money as it struggles to raise enough revenues to fund its Big Four agenda and service huge loans. Now we start with mobile money transfers, and Treasury effected the increase in excise tax on mobile money transactions from 10% to 12%, and Rotich through this said that money from this would fund the universal healthcare program that aims to cover all households by 2022. Now, mobile phone operators were opposed to this, arguing the move would hurt the poor the most and undo most of the gains made in promoting a cash-light economy. Let's swipe to the next concern. Now, inflation, that is, prices of beer, bottled water, petroleum products and cigarettes will also be going up every year after Treasury effected plans to change excise duty chargeable to these goods. And annual increments of the sin tax on beer and cigarettes have long been a feature of Kenya's budgets, but the changes now allow the KRA Commissioner General to adjust the rate of duty charge taking into account inflation every year. KRA before made the adjustments after 2 years. This is expected to hit consumers of the non-luxury goods hard, including households that use kerosene, motorists and buyers of motorcycles. Now, the other concern, analysts have brought up the concern that adjusting taxes to inflation would be unfair to workers whose pay is not necessarily improved by the rise in inflation. But the government also hoped to collect taxes from benefits paid to employees such as meals, airtime, car and house allowances, and also per diems. Now to housing, MPs 2 days ago also shot down the proposal to create a national housing development fund that would have seen employers and employees contribute 0.5% of their pay. The government hoped to raise about 60 billion shillings annually from workers to finance plans to provide affordable housing as part of its Big Four agenda. Workers, unions and employers had termed the proposed levy a burden to an overtaxed workforce. Now, these are just a few ways that the government hopes to raise money, all contained in the 2018-2019 budget, but in something that members of parliament and some of the country's top earners would be happy about. Treasury decided to drop proposals to introduce a top tax band of 35% on monthly incomes of above 750,000 shillings. Let's get to a warning of sorts. It's not actually of sorts, it's definitely a warning. As a debate on the implementation of the 16% increase in tax on fuel continues, economists are now warning that the government's huge appetite for expensive loans threatens long-term pain for the country. The government that is desperate for and short of cash has resorted to taxation, but economists instead advise a cut in spending and a much lower uptake of expensive loans to ease the pain of the debt burden that currently stands at 5 trillion shillings. NTV's Silas Apollo has more.
President Uhuru Kenyatta is back in China, where on the sidelines of the Forum on China-Africa cooperation between the 1st and 5th of September, he hopes to sign a deal for a new round of financing. Kenya is expected to sign a 380 billion shillings contract for the second phase of the standard gauge railway in September. This comes as concern that the country's debt is well beyond the red zone. Official data show that the country's debt stands at about 5 trillion shillings. This is inclusive of both the domestic and foreign money that the government has borrowed over the years to finance projects and its recurrent expenditure. Some economists have argued that the current debt crisis could be blamed on the country's increasing appetite for commercial loans at the expense of cheaper multilateral loans. Dr. Samuel Nyandemo, a development economist and a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, says that our craving for quick but expensive loans and a lack of prudence in spending the money is to blame for the current mess.
It's pointless to borrow, and what has been borrowed ends up into the pockets of few individuals That does not make any economic sense.
He says the government's borrowing that adds no value to the economy, but locked in this debt chokehold, Treasury has been forced to seek radical steps to service expenditure at the expense of the tax-paying citizen.
Borrowing is critical, but it's not a critical prerequisite. It's not a necessity.
And it is not only the borrowing that could have led to the trouble that the government is currently in. Kwame Owino of the Institute of Economic Affairs says our spending has been off the roof.
We were promised things in a way. We also accepted too many things, trying to build stadiums, all manner of things, the standard gauge railway and all these goodies, shiny things that have not generated any growth, in addition to the money that's been stolen.
At the moment, he says, the country spends about 7% of the GDP, which is more than double the recommended percentage for developing nations.
The recommended rate for a country at our development level is between 2.5 to 3. We were at more than double that, and we maintained that for 5 years going. We were definitely going to run into trouble.
The way out of the debt, he says, will be to adopt a disciplined approach to our borrowing and expenditure, something he says must be led by the Treasury. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Meanwhile, the Kenya Revenue Authority has been on the spot for missing revenue collection targets, in part due to the proliferation of illicit trade, tax evasion and corruption. This even as the government finds new ways to finance its expenditure that includes more taxes. President Uhuru Kenyatta says senior officers and managers in government institutions will bear the responsibility for any theft of public resources under their watch as a way of fighting graft. But Vincent Odur reports that corruption is denying the country a substantial amount of revenue.
Kenya Revenue Authority had only collected 1.17 trillion shillings in taxes by end of May this year. That was 240 billion shillings short of Treasury's revised target of 1.4 trillion shillings. As the taxman defended the missed targets, a number of illicit goods have been slipping through the cracks and into the market untaxed and perhaps facilitated by some of their officers.
Wewe umepatiwa kazi na wananchi wa Kenya kusimamia kama ni bandari. Si ni kweli? Yeah? Usifikiri wewe utakaa kwa ofisi yako ya MD, so usikuja kusema ni Steve pale chini ule alikuwa anatoa mizigo ndio aliiba. Kama aliiba hata wewe umeiba.
In August this year, detectives were at the port of Mombasa to investigate a tax evasion racket said to have cost the public 100 billion shillings in just 6 months. Rogue officials were said to have colluded with unscrupulous traders to facilitate false declaration to evade tax.
Hii mambo ya kila saa kusema ati ni wale wadogo kule. Hakuna mwizi mdogo. Mwizi mdogo ako na mdosi wake. Yeah? Na sisi tuna haja na wale wakubwa.
Tax evasion and corruption have been denying the country millions of shillings in revenue.
If you use your taxes properly, people will feel obliged to comply with more, even if you increase taxes. So that is another issue in Kenya, that we see rampant corruption and too much wastage within the public sector. You have to control such kind of tax evasions with a more, let me say, in a way that you understand social behavior. So you try to, especially the biggest way is to increase compliance is that you try to encourage people to pay. So someone might have a tax arrears, and you can give him 2 or 3 years that you have a tax settlement when you pay.
KRA Director General John Jiraini says since June this year, they have removed from the border posts and ports officers who have been in the same post for 3 years as one measure to check the tide of contraband goods flowing into the country.
We are one of the few institutions in government that have got full-fledged investigation capacity, just focusing on staff.
There is too much leakages within the tax system. KRA is yet to put measures that it can expand the base. So the same people who pay taxes every year are the same people that are expected to pay the following year when you revise your targets going up. So it becomes a constraining issue that you have the same people but you want more from them.
For now, tax-paying Kenyans will have to brace for tough times ahead as the taxman squeezes their pockets. Vincent Odur, NTV.
Opposition leader Raila Odinga has urged elected leaders in the country not to politicize the war on graft spearheaded by the government. Raila, who was accompanied by Senate Minority Leader James Orengo in Kigere, Siaya County, says those who have been implicated should wait for the court's verdict on charges facing them.
You will not have to run to Raila Odinga or Uhuru Kenyatta. There was nobody who is going to defend you when you destroy or take away public property or public finances. All that we are saying is that nobody should weaponize the war on corruption to bring about injustice. But otherwise, we are behind the two leaders to make sure that Kenya is a greater nation. And finally, this war against corruption has started. And we knew what time it was going to take. I've asked most of our people not to panic, not to have any doubt about the direction that this war is going to take. It's going to come to very close to your relatives, people who are very dear to you. But all that we want is to ensure that there is no victimization, that there is no unfair prosecution. So we are saying that this war must be prosecuted to the very, very end. And there will be no turning back as far as we are concerned.
Also speaking to the matter of corruption, Deputy President William Ruto says those facing corruption charges will be dealt with in accordance with the Constitution. The Deputy President was speaking in Samburu County during the 29th edition of the Maralal International Camel Derby. Bridget Singano was there and filed this report.
The sights and sounds of the 29th edition of the Maralal International Camel Derby. The Deputy President leading a delegation of top government officials to flag off the 2-decade-old camel race. The hosts taking the opportunity to express their displeasure with the recent arrest of the Agriculture Principal Secretary Richard Lesiampe on corruption charges.
Na si Lesiampe peke yake. Hii mambo ya kwenda kuras watu saa 10 ya usiku. Ikiwa mtu ako na watoto wake ndani ya nyumba, iko na bibi yake ndani ya nyumba, unaenda kutoa mtu blanketi akiwa na bibi yake, makamu rais. Hebu tuangalie hiyo kitu.
Na support ile kazi ambayo mnafanya kupigana na ufisadi. Lakini tungeomba ya kwamba yule Msamburu mmoja sisi tuko naye afuatiliwe haki, na tuhakikishe ya kwamba kama hakuna makosa amefanya arudi kazini ili aweze kuendelea kutufanyia kazi.
Fight against corruption isibadilishwe iwe malice. Kwa sababu Lesiampe pia angekataa kwenda kama angekuwa summon kwenda record statement. Saa ingine hii harassment inaharibia watu careers.
The Deputy President defended the government's commitment to the war against corruption.
And every person will be given a fair hearing and fair treatment in accordance with the laws and the Constitution of Kenya. Kwa hivyo, hiyo kazi yote vile munaona, na it is not targeted at anybody or any community or any political party. It is a national endeavor to ensure that we eliminate wastage, mismanagement that comes through corruption.
The Camel Derby endeavors to promote peaceful coexistence among the pastoralist communities, encourage alternative sources of income, promote local tourism and cultural exchange among these communities. In this den, some of the competing camels are taking a breather in readiness for tomorrow's competition. In his speech here in Maralal, the Deputy President insisting that the Ministry of Tourism should be involved in the planning of this function since it's a one of its kind in this country. He has directed the Ministry of Tourism on that matter to be actively involved in the preparations for the 2019 Camel Derby. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Maralal, Samburu County.
Elsewhere, but still on the issue of corruption, meanwhile, maize farmers in the North Rift have welcomed the recent arrests and prosecution of those who illegally profited from the maize crisis and at the expense of the genuine grain growers. They shared their sentiments on the latest developments with NTV's Lois Swangoi.
Farmers from the North Rift have been closely following the latest developments into the maize scandal. As the latest chapter unfolds in the corridors of justice, some of those accused of being the biggest beneficiaries of payments from the NCPB at their expense are familiar to them, but they are not convinced they produced maize worth this much.
Na lazima kuna wenye wako ndani wakubwa kama wabunge, kama watu wenye wako kwa serikali, ingepotiliwa vizuri mpaka tukue kama ni ukweli. Watu kama hao waondolewe. Tusipo tena tuseme ni MP ni nani. Hao watu watoke kabisa kwa serikali.
But the farmers are in part happy about the move by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to round up a number of individuals, including Agriculture PS Richard Lesiampe, and to charge them in court. They say this is just the first step in the bid to find justice.
Wenye walipatikana na hii maneno ya scandal wawekwe ndani na washikwe mara moja, waendelee tu kufanyiwa kesi na wasitolewe, kwa sababu sisi wakulima ndio sisi tumeumia kama wakaachi wa Elgeyo Marakwet. Mahindi yetu pato tuko naye kwa store.
Tungetaka wenye wameshikwa ibotiliwe na kama ni ukweli wafungwe maisha.
Investigations have revealed that only 17 traders profited to the tune of 2.1 billion shillings from the National Cereals and Produce Board, having colluded with chiefs and agricultural officers who made up the vetting committees that facilitated the very same fraud that they were established to guard against. Farmers now want those implicated not to politicize the graft matter.
Kitu kama ukabila tuseme ni mtu yetu hatuna hata kidogo. Kama ni yetu achukue misiko yake mwenyewe. Awekwe ndani kabisa.
Investigators are keeping a sharp eye on transactions in Maize Bridge, Ziwa, Kitale, Bungoma and Kisumu depots, and several other people could be arrested. The 6 depots being investigated allegedly received maize worth over 8.7 billion shillings, which accounts for over 73% of the total deliveries. Lois Wangoi, NTV, in the county of Uasin Gishu.
That story by Lois Wangoi brings us to 20 minutes past the hour. It's been 20 minutes of quite some depressing news, what with the pressure at the pump, expected higher cost of living, and what ails our country most, and that is corruption. So we'll take a break here, give you a breather, and after which we'll come with a bit of a positive story where Rose Wangoi has... Welcome back to NTV Weekend Edition, and we're back with a story that has really many questions given the twists of late. The wife of the main suspect in the shooting of former finance minister in Garissa County, Rebecca Hajila, is missing. The family says Hajila was last seen the day her husband David Mwai was arrested. Efforts to trace her last moves have proven futile, and as police denied that she is in their custody. The police say investigations into the suspicious suicide of a suspect in custody are underway, as Kevin Mutai reports.
Esther Wanjiru, the eldest sister of David Mwai, the main suspect in the shooting of former county executive for finance in Garissa County, says that Mwai called her on the night he said to have shot Idris Mukhtar. Wanjiru says her late brother informed her that he had been arrested and taken to custody.
Mi asubuhi yenyewe ya Thursday, Mwai alikuwa amenipigia. Akaniambia, na yenyewe mi sister siwezi pinga, wacha tu nikuambie ukweli. Ukijua kwa mimi nilifanya hiyo kitendo na nimeitikia, na nitenda wapi? Nitenda kotini. Nikamwambia ina shida, kama ni wewe itikia basi fanya nini, hii kesi iende mbele upelekwe kotini.
She says that the family has been having sleepless nights after the disappearance of Mwai's wife, who went missing on the same day her husband was arrested in Dandora. Rebecca Hajila, a mother of two, has not communicated to the family, and her mobile phone is off, a situation that has caused jitters in the family.
If I look at the modus of operandi in this shooting, I would not see why she should fear much. Yes.
Owino, who was speaking in Parklands police station, maintained that Mwai took his life after confessing to detectives about what he had done and the people involved in the attempted murder of Idris Mukhtar.
So what he did, he put the jerrycan here. It's in our photos because before we remove the body, we must photograph. So the jerrycan was here, he stepped on it, hung himself here, and then...
Police also say 3 vehicles believed to have been used in the crime have been impounded. Kevin Mutai, NTV.
Definitely a story we'll follow up on, because anyone who's heard this story, I'm sure you've talked to many, it has them saying, "Ay, hapana." To another development from around the country, a family in Isli Estate, Nairobi County, is seeking justice for their son who was allegedly shot dead by a senior police officer. In Molo, Nakuru County, a couple was found murdered at Total Village in Mau Summit on Friday night.
The pain of losing a son. This family is crying for justice after their son was found murdered in unclear circumstances and the body dumped in Isili. Liban Jamal, a known boxer, died from gunshot injuries on Friday night. He was shot on the chest.
Kwa ushirika kwake asubuhi saa 11 alitolewa wakiwa wamefungwa macho, walikuja wakatupiwa hapa 6th Street. So ndo wakaanza kupigwa risasi kiunyama.
The family is pointing an accusing finger at the police and wants legal action against those behind the brutal killing.
Pangani police station wamemaliza vijana yetu. Jana usiku mwisho vijana 4 waliuawa.
In Molo, Nakuru County, the bodies of 70-year-old Wilfred Kimaita and his wife Hannah Mudhoni were found lying in a pool of blood in their house on Saturday morning. The body of the man was on the floor as his wife was found on the bed. Authorities say the bodies had deep cuts on the head, neck and torso.
The thugs gained entry by cutting through the window. They found the couple while asleep, and they killed them. Nothing was stolen from the house. We have started investigations.
The bodies were moved to Molo Sub-County Hospital mortuary. Ruzongoi, NTV.
Still on the crime beat, let's take you to Ebuye, Bungoma County, where police are holding a middle-aged man who allegedly stabbed his neighbor to death. The two are said to have fought over land. Zacchaeus Mosame has more.
A solemn mood clouded Wakulinda village in Mukhia location, Webuye West constituency, as residents tried to come to grips with a fight between two neighbors over land that ended in pain and death. According to witnesses, it all began when the now deceased Fred Nyongesa attacked his neighbor Humphrey Marango with a machete. Humphrey is said to have retaliated with a fatal blow to the chest of his attacker.
Sasa tumeshashindwa Marango, kitu gani kilifanya badala ya kukaa kwa boma tu asiende kwa ile kwa ajili alimua kutoka kwa nyumba yake, distance alitoka kwake akitoa kwenda kumuua, akaruka barabara kwenda kumuua.
Ndio walikombana na huyo akaenda kwa mgaza, akapika ripoti akasema fulani walikuwa wananikombanisha, na akasema ende ulale, kesho yake nitakuja ili nisuluhishe maneno. Kabla mkaza kuenda hapo, sasa akasikia kelele. Wakati alikuja na akapata huyo kijana ametungwa kisu.
Kuangalia huko juu ninaona watu wamejaa. Na hao watu wamejaa, ni roho yangu ikasituka. Kuenda kuangalia huyo hapo juu nikapata mtoto ameanguka chini.
Area Assistant Chief says the two have quarreled frequently over land.
Uja kuangalia Fred baadaye alikuwa ametungwa kisu kwa kifua na amelala meaka. Marangona haya ana claim ya kwamba alikuwa amekatwa mkono na Fred kwa banga. Sasa ni kama ile kukatwa na banga ilimfanya akasikia ujungu, naye akakimbia akachukua kisu akamdunga Fred.
This body was taken to Webuye Referral Hospital mortuary, while Humphrey is being held at the Webuye police station as he will be arraigned in court on Monday. Zakis Masame, NTV, Bungoma.
More than 5 people have died and others injured after a fire broke out in Silanga slums in Kibera, Nairobi. The 2 a.m. incident has left dozens homeless after razing at least 43 houses in the area. The fire is said to have spread fast, causing extensive damage due to lack of access roads into the slum. The cause of the fire is yet to be established. However, witnesses say it was caused by a stove which exploded in one of the houses. I don't know about you, but I'm a bit tired of these bloody and quite sad stories. By bloody, I mean the death stories that we had earlier on. So let's have a pick-me-up. And as I promised earlier, it is difficult to get a job in the current economy, even for able-bodied young Kenyans. Now imagine how hard it is for people living with disabilities, more so for those with mental illness. Maina Gaderu understands this predicament because his son suffers from autism. To this end, Gaderu opened a car wash whose attendants are people living with autism and cerebral palsy. Rose Wangoi visited the car wash along Forest Lane in Parklands, Nairobi, and she shows us how the business is both an inspiration and an opportunity for people often shunned by society.
Embrace Autism Car Wash on Forest Lane, Parklands offers all the standard services and amenities of your typical car wash. The only difference is that the Embrace Autism Car Wash is primarily staffed by people living with autism and cerebral palsy. The proprietor, Maina Gaderu, says he understands that unemployment is common among people with special needs, not because they lack skills, but because society views them with sympathetic lenses instead of viewing them as valuable people with different skills.
If you see somebody with a disability, it's most likely that you're going to think that person is going to beg from you. So that's something we'd want to change, so that we have people who have disability. They normally say disability is not inability. We want to put that to actualize that, because you'll find that employment for persons with intellectual disability is not there largely, because people really don't want to appreciate what they can do.
This inspired him to start Embrace Autism Car Wash early this year. The business seeks to empower people with autism and cerebral palsy.
My son basically has autism. He's turning 18 in September. And basically his academics have been very low. So the main worry has been what will happen once he becomes of age, once he becomes an adult, when I am not there, when the mother is not there. Basically at home I've been training him how to do car wash. We've been washing my car with him, where I train him how to earn an income. I pay him 100 shillings. Then I also train him on how to deposit the money into an account, how to withdraw. Basically the whole chain of what really happens when you become an independent person.
Like many people, Joseph Mwangi had a hard time getting a job. Mwangi, who has cerebral palsy, says he's very comfortable at his job.
Maisha ilikuwa ngumu kama nipate kazi. Ndio hakuna kazi, tunakaa tu kwa nyumba, hata sikuwa najua kuosha gari. Hii ni mara ya kwanza kuosha gari hapa. Nikajua nakuja asubuhi, tunaosha magari, tunapata magari kama 20.
For each wash, Mwangi is teamed up with another employee to complete the task, and during the free time, he is trained to undertake other duties. Since he got employed, Mwangi says he feels like a new man. He is motivated.
Kama kwa wiki tunaosha gari 20 mpaka saa 10 tuna relax. Tunapata zingine tunaosha, tunapumzika. Tena nipata pesa nienda na natoka Kitengela na kuja paka Nairobi na mshahara ninapata mzuri.
Another employee, John Mwaka, who is autistic, has been working at the car wash for 4 months. Mwaka vacuums, cleans windows, rims and carpets.
Nilikuwa mdogo, hawakuweza kunielewa, but nilikuwa napenda kucheza sana. Pale kuna mchezo na bidi nilale hapo. Nilikuwa nafungiwa sana kwa nyumba, but mimi natoroka kupitia kwa shimo la maji chafu. But wakati nilienda special school ndo walianza kunielewa. Watu walianza kunidharau au kunipenda. Walisema nimeenda kwa shule za endazimu, nimekuwa mwendazimu. Saizi watu wananielewa, wananipenda sana.
Mwaka says he enjoys his new job and the opportunity Embrace Autism Car Wash accorded him.
Hii kazi ya car wash nafurahia sana. Napata mapato mazuri. Nanunua shati na kiatu. Alafu ile nanibakishia ni transport ya kwenda mazoezi. Na pia nyumbani. Lakini kama fare hakuna, sijui kuomba. Nategemea miguu yangu na kukimbia.
For 21-year-old Ruth Maina, this is her first job with pay. Ruth, who has a condition known as hearing impairment, works as a receptionist at the car wash.
I like my new job because I get to use computer and I like computer, and I'm practicing computer package.
She went through some challenges in school, like children playing together. She could be left out because they didn't understand her. That's including the teachers in her classrooms. She would actually fall in the group of being punished for something that she didn't know. So she was left behind getting information. The near future, we would like to see Ruth as an independent lady, which we can see a change from the previous days and months we've been with her. And having put that effort, we can see that she can be a very responsible person.
We want to be capturing the manual data that we have into our computer so that for ease of management of our customers and also that training them on how to do data input.
The employees are dedicated, thorough and most importantly happy.
Tunapendana hapa, tunafanya kazi mzuri, tunamaliza kazi, tuna relax.
I insisted that they have bank accounts so that we can just be writing to them checks. They go and deposit into their account.
The car wash business has given them opportunities to realize their capabilities, gain confidence, gain financial independence, and have a place to call their own.
Special children tumedharauliwa sana. Sasa kwa wazazi kama wana watoto disability, wasifungie watoto nyumbani, wakuwe freedom na waache pia wacheze. Na kila mtu ako na talent yake.
Living in a world where people living with disabilities are overlooked in the workplace, embracing autism is not only uplifting people with special needs, but shifting the way people view them and their capabilities.
Rose Wangoi, NTV.
Well, thanks Rose Wangoi and team for sharing that story, and Bwana Gaderu, on behalf of those lives that you're impacting positively, asante sana. And yes, it's been a long story. Speaking of those people with special needs, I'd like to appreciate David Agondoa for his work that he does, and with that I'll give him a break because he's been doing a lot of signing for the first half of this bulletin. So pumzika kidogo Bwana Agondoa. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to another uplifting story. At 22, Peter Ngoge identifies himself as a media owner, albeit in a small village of Ime in Nakuru County. His journey into owning a radio station was sparked by his interest in how gadgets operate. Bridget Ngana paid him a visit at his bedroom studio for this report.
At Ndugiri Shopping Center in Subukia, radio listeners have found a voice that resonates with them. The voice that has ensured residents here are tuned in can be traced to this homestead. The signs on the gate warn visitors that this is a high security area reminiscent of a radio station. It is all Peter Ngugi's inventiveness, and Ime FM is the highlight of his technical skills, and all the action happens right here in his bedroom.
Hello Ime FM, nimekuona kwa news.
If you expected to see the latest equipment, well, here is Ime FM. Buttons and contraptions pieced together from scrap electronics.
Nilianzia kuunganisha vitu spare part kutoka kwa radio. Ninaenda kwa village nikiokota maradio zenye zimeisha kama vile hapa mnaziona nimeziokota. Nikaanza kuzisakanya, ninatoa spare part kama transistor, diode, capacitor. Nikafikiria kutengeneza radio station.
On one of the walls of the studio hangs a memory of Ngugi's meeting with President Uhuru Kenyatta at the 4th Devolution Conference held in Nakuru some 2 years ago. It is during that encounter that he requested the president for a radio license. The president delegated the matter to the former Nakuru governor Kinuthia Mbogwa.
Kutoka hapo sijui nini kiliendelea, lakini bado najua president anikumbuka. Bado sikijakufa roho, bado nangangana tu kidogo ndipo hata unaona nina uwezo pia ku mix. Unajua kuna vijana wanasema ati hakuna kazi. So ninawaeleza, nawaonyesha, nawaonyesha vile wanaweza fanya kazi na mikono na wasikufe roho na pia watafanikiwa.
Due to financial constraints, Ngugi only sat for KCPE. His parents say they have always supported his inventions and would continue to the best of their ability.
Tengeneza taa ya sola, taa ya kuchaji na stima, na tena anatengeneza sound detector, electrical shock, na tena ameweka pale sana kwa gate.
Kama sponsor wa mshike mkono, pengine ataweza enda bali, ataweza hata jisaidia na saidia nchi.
His youthful listeners believe Ngugi's Ime FM has the potential to rule the national airways.
Ime FM inatusaidia kama vijana juu ukitaka hata kama ni kangoma umsania na kuchagulia tu. Kama kuna kama mkutano hivi ya area anakuambia.
Ngugi hopes to one day turn Ime FM into a commercial radio station that can help solve the youth unemployment in the country. We are right outside Ime FM and the studio is in session, and this is one of the favorite radio stations here in Ime village. Peter literally puts the tea in talent, and he has shown us that his passion in breaking down radios and gadgets has led him to be somewhat of a media owner here in Ime village. The challenge is that he doesn't have a license, so he kind of operates his station more or less like a pirate, and he hopes that those government officials he was able to speak to will be able to help him to finally legitimize his station. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Nakuru County.
Bwana Ngoge, about to you, sir. A lot of respect for your innovation, and as I would say, probably your listeners on Ime FM, how newega. Hopefully, with this story by Bridget Ngana, someone will come to help him and support his initiative that he has taken. We're taking a break here, but also coming up. In Women and Power, we feature Editor Ochieng, the voice speaking against sexual and gender-based violence in Kibera. Welcome back. Deep in Kibera or Kibra slum, if you may, Editor Ocheng's voice calling for society free of sexual and gender-based violence cannot be silenced. She uses her own painful experience to give life to a network that in turn also offers solace and empowerment to many survivors and their families. She shares her story of how her Kibera Young Women Network is impacting lives in the slum in this week's Women and Power.
The flurry of daily life in the Olympic area of Nairobi's Kibera slum, one of Africa's largest informal settlements, is perhaps a veil of a darkness that is only talked about in hushed tones: sexual and gender-based violence. 30-year-old Editor Ocheng is, however, casting a light upon the paths of victims scarred by this violent abuse. She's made it her life's work to speak against sexual and gender-based violence, reflecting on her own journey towards healing through the ones she now cares for.
The thing that motivated me to come in this space, it is because I was defiled, and it was 2 times. First, I was 6 years old. And when I was 16 years old, I was also gang raped. When we isolate sex, it comes later with SGPV. Because we are being violated, but we are not allowed by the community to speak about sex-related issues.
Statistics not only show a spike in the number of sexual and gender-based violence cases, but also a rise in the campaign of silence that accompanies it. Editor says her own experience has helped free many from their chains.
If Editor is not in Kibera today, people cannot react to some of these issues. So I said, no, let me fill the gap by building more leaders. And as women, this is how we are going to live. Kila mtu ashikane mkono.
Though she has been on the path of activism since 2004, the challenges that come with it are still an uphill task.
Our justice system are weak. This is a perpetrator. He has a bond with a bond of 500,000. Tomorrow is given 200,000. The bond is reducing. So which means this perpetrator will come back in the society again, and this perpetrator will hunt us. When you call 999, they give us a lot of numbers, we even write them down. But let me tell you, when you have these cases, one-on-one, it is a case you're dealing with. Call those numbers. Believe me, those numbers are not working.
Namjua na roho yake, wasichana wengi ashamsaidia. Wale wanakimbia wanawacha shule, anarudisha kwa laini.
I love the fact that she's doing it with a passion. And there's something that drives her to do it. Because living here for the last 28 years, I can attest to what can go wrong in a hood.
We need to support our women. We need to empower them. We need to work with them in this course of journey.
You'll hear men saying, ukikosea mwanamke ukimchapa, Edith atakushika. So I know they know. As much as they're saying it in a sarcastic way, but I know they know. That is an attitude change. They know it is wrong even to beat a woman. It is wrong to violate a woman.
For Women in Power, my name is Gladys Gashanja.
Well done to Editor, and thank you to Gladys for sharing that story. Now, a bit different from that focus. Here's something rather strange but expected from politicians. One American lawmaker saw his party Photoshop him as a tattooed gangster to make him look cool ahead of polls. Ted Cruz, who, for your information, was a candidate for the Republican nomination for President of the United States in 2016, was portrayed as a bad boy, even calling him tough as Texas. Cruz is campaigning for a Senate seat. From a wannabe to a has-been, here's Pedro Carrizales, a local Mexican lawmaker. I hope I've said that right. Well, here is a real Pedro Carrizales, aka El Maize or Maize, who left behind gangs and violence to become a local lawmaker after being inspired by Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador's consistency and tenacity. beats me on how that would work here. But we have our own politicians and their own breed, and so they don't need any tattoos. Their mannerisms speak for themselves. Now to sports, but there's something interesting that was the talk of town earlier this week.
Shoeless Conseslus Kipruto winning it the Diamond League in Switzerland, that is in Zurich, after coming out top in the 3,000 meter steeplechase without one shoe in that race. It arose some memories, Mark. Remember, some guys have even ran without shoes at some point. Childhood memories.
Chuma. In fact, some people would say, isi kitu. People used to even play soccer without shoes, and even if you meet those muibas or shonge, as they used to call them in Narok, you just do this, keep going, and kick the ball, and life continues.
Yeah, he got injured at some point, but then at least he won.
All right, but that's not too strange from Kenya, from our background, you know, back in the days. So, but well done to him. Well done. It didn't stop him.
All right, coming up with sports after this break. Let's now play. And former Cherangani MP and marathoner Wesley Korir, as well as world marathon record holder Mary Keitany, have called on Athletics Kenya to step up their fight against doping. The two spoke during the opening ceremony of the Shoe for Africa Foundation new modern school constructed in Eldama Ravine. This as Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, ADAK, is expected to hold a press briefing on Monday to give an update on the current situation on doping in the country.
AK fraternity to take charge and actually keep away this kind of doping, because we will not go far if we try to cut a shortcut.
It is time for heads to start rolling and to make sure that those who are aiding and abiding doping in this country are taken seriously and kicked out of this country with immediate effects. Na mimi sitasimama na sitanyamaza nikiona watu wanaharibu njia ambayo inasaidia watoto wetu. For the next generation to be successful, we need to take seriously about the issues affecting our athletics right now.
Days after positions of the Shujaa technical bench were advertised, and head coach Innocent Simiyu stated that he will not apply. Former National Sevens rugby team head coach Benjamin Ayimba has castigated the Kenya Rugby Union Board for their handling of the issue. Speaking on Top Sport, Ayimba also ruled out applying for the job.
What I don't understand is the lunacy that goes on in there. It's almost comical. Actually, it is comical. And the most unfortunate thing, Sean, is that these guys don't have any sort of passion. They don't know how much work a player puts in that field. They don't know what the coach has to sacrifice to get the team to play in a world stage. It's very unfortunate that none of those guys there have ever run into a field where there's 40,000 people and expected to win, and then somebody tells you back home that you can't be paid because we've got this problem and the other problem.
Will you apply for the coaching job again?
How sick can I be in this world? How sick can I be in this world to apply for that job? I know I love this country to bits, but not that much. Not to the extent where somebody breaks something deliberately and expects me to go back.
And 4 goals were scored in the Kenyan Premier League matches played Saturday across the country, with Bandari cementing second place. Coached by Bernard Mwalala, the coastal outfit pipped host Sony Sugar with an 82nd minute weekly for Chomo goal. At the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos, goals by Cliff Nyakea and Ronald Regan gave Mathare United a 2-0 win over Kakamega Homeboys. The Slum Boys, coached by Francis Kimanzi, lie 8th. This as host Nzoia Sugar defeated neighbors Vihiga United 1-0 at the Sudi grounds. On Sunday, Chemelil Sugar hosts Posta Rangers. Kenyan Premier League sides Ulinzi Stars and AFC Leopards are through to the semi-finals of the SportPesa Shield following similar 4-1 wins at the Bukungu Stadium in Kakamega. Ulinzi Stars, coached by Dunstan Nyaudo, were too good for Western Branch League side River Plate FC, scoring twice in each half. In the second quarter-final, Ingwe scored thrice in the first half to thrash National Super League side Kenya Police. On Sunday, the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos Sofapaka will face off with Tusker FC before 2017 runners-up Kariobangi Sharks play KPL champions Gor Mahia. And the teams are playing for a 2 million shillings prize money, as well as a chance to represent the country in next season's CAF Confederation Cup. Moving on, the Egypt and Rwanda, who have both qualified for the Women's Volleyball Under-20 World Championship, will meet in the final of the Africa competition on Sunday at the Kasarani Stadium. This as hockey action continued at the City Park grounds. Basketball unfolded at USIU, and Manvir Barian won all 4 stages on day 1 to dominate Rally Tanzania.
World Boxing Council Women's Super Bantamweight champion Fatuma Iron Fist Zarika arrived in the country from England on Saturday and headed straight to watch a World International Boxing Association title fight between Kenya's Evelyn Adero and Mona Lisa Sibanda of Zimbabwe. Zarika, who's been training in the UK for a month, will seek to defend her title against the Mexican Yamileth Mercado next Saturday.
Nimejitayarisha vizuri sana kulingana na makocha wenye ambapo niko nao, pia namshukuru Mungu kwanza
KPA dismissed KCA 64-50 in the National Classic Basketball League to keep their unbeaten run intact. The Docksmen will be hoping to maintain their good run against the battered Strathmore Blades on Sunday after the Blades lost 55-51 to Umoja. In the Women's League, KPA women schooled Strathmore Swords 67-36 at the USIU courts. KCA University students held Green Sharks to a surprise 1-1 draw in the Kenya Hockey Union Men's Premier League at City Park. The draw dented Green Sharks' hopes of securing their 8th victory of the season and reducing the gap between them and second-place Kenya Police. In other results from the Men's National League, JKUAT edged University of Nairobi 1-0 and Impala shut out Technical University of Kenya 2-0. Reigning Africa champion Manvir Barian won all 4 stages to lead Rally Tanzania after day 1 action. The Skoda driver has over 4 minutes lead over Tanzania's Sunny Birdie, and if Barian wins the event then he'll retain his title. There are 4 stages on Sunday, with 2 being repeated twice. The second leg of the Safari Tour Golf Series teed off on Saturday at the Vet Lab Sports Club with a Pro-Am tournament that brought together over 40 local and regional professionals who got paired with over 100 amateurs. The tournament proper tees off on Sunday. Egypt and Rwanda will clash for the right to be continental champions when they meet in the final of the Volleyball Under-20 Women's African Nations Championship at Kasarani from 4 p.m. Cameroon will play Rwanda for the bronze medal at 2 p.m. Hosts Kenya finished 5th.
And Manchester City has just beaten Newcastle.